Okay, so let's kind of prep this model for baking instead of ZBrush. So this is what I did. I've kind of used the layout, kind of arrange all my UVs on the 0 to 1 space. You can see how everything fits into the 0 to 1 space by default when you use the layout. So that's exactly what we want. So if I should, okay, let me just go to objects. Let me do this again. So okay, let's kind of check the UV distortion for this. Let's see if this is good enough to work with. So just you can see how it's mostly whitish and a lighter red at the top, which is still fine though. This is not too bad to work with. We can still work with this. If it start giving us issue instead of substance painter, then we'll have to come back here and then rework the UVs. So object mode, I'll select everything and I'll go to the arrow at the end, click on this, go down to texture, turn on checker map. So checker map turned on. Now you can see how this particular preview map is kind of tiling around the model without so much of a stretching, which is actually fine though. So that's fine. Let me just turn that off. So let me turn that off. Okay. So now let me just go out of this UV layout and go to the modeling standard. Because now I want to start exporting this map to ZBrush and kind of bake our normal displacement maps. Okay. So let me just duplicate this just to be on the safe side. I'll just do a duplicate of our ZBrush file just to be on the safe side. So I'm going to create a new folder and I'll name this uvid. Let me use caps for this uvid assets. Okay, enter. So I'm going to be saving all our new 3D model now in this folder. So I copy that file path. So let me select, okay, using these rings and pokers, may just go in here and export selection, no, export, okay, let's see, if there's one more thing we can do, okay, no, let me just export selection. Now I'm going to export everything into that folder. Okay, I'll save this export selection. I'm exporting that on with the OBJ format. So I'm exporting that OBJ format for this. So I'll export the names also now. Okay, let me just rename this proper. Okay, I just copied that, so I won't need to rename it again. So I'll just paste that in here, so I don't have to rename. Then the last part, which is the bat. Then we can export selection also for this. Same process actually, same process. Let me just copy that, just so I don't have to rename that again. I'll just paste that in here. Okay, that's fine. Alright. So now we can safely import this now inside of ZBrush. Okay. So if I select this, I'll start with the bats. So I'll go to, you have to make sure you're on the same subdivision level that you exported that model out. So you can import that back in just to play safe. So I'll go to import, because I'm going to be replacing this bar that has no UV. So if you come here to kind of check UV map, there's a UV in there, so you need to delete that UVs. So delete that, because we have kind of reworked our UV inside of Maya. So now there's no UV inside, just to avoid having issues. So I'll check this nail also. I believe there are some old UVs in here that were exported out with. Yes, so I'll delete UV in there also. So this is completely, there are no UVs in here. I believe for this one, there were no UVs in there when we kind of exported that out to Maya. Yeah, there are no UVs there. That's why it's kind of grayed out. So I will go back to the bat itself. select the bat itself. Okay, and I'll just do an import for this, and I'll look for the file paths. So you want to make sure you did not tamper with the topology inside of Maya, because if you tamper with the topology inside of Maya, or you move or deleted anything, you kind of have an issue while importing this back into ZBrush. So that's why we did not tamper with the topology. We only worked on the UVs instead of Maya. So the same. So you can see now the imported mesh has a UV in there. Let me solo this. Let me see if I can move this. Okay, I can't move this because of the layers we have in there. But that's fine though. At least we know that we have imported the models with UVs in there. So it's kind of showing us active buttons for the morph and delete UVs. Okay. So let me see. Okay, yeah, let me just import the other models also. It's basically the same process. So just import that. Let me just kind of repeat this. Make sure you don't tamper with the topology in Maya while exporting this out and bringing it back into ZBrush. Because if you tamper with it, you're going to have an issue. You're really going to have an issue while working with the UVs or trying to bake your maps in here. So try not to tamper with it. Make sure you're on the final detailed work before you export it out. Okay, I think everything should be fine now. Okay, I think one more. Let's just make sure I actually did export this out on subdivision level 1, so I'll just import that in. Okay, believe everything looks fine. Yeah, I think this is fine now. This is fine. So I think it's kind of safe to kind of start exporting out, creating normal map and displacement map for this. So normal map, this is the UV map. We have our UVs in there, so that's correct. So let's see, which one should we bake first? Which model should we bake first? Let's start with the bat itself. So let me just solo this. Okay, it's fine. Then we would go to, let's see, actually two ways of exporting out, baking out maps though instead of ZBrush, but this is the way I like to do it because it's kind of a bit faster for me. So going down to the normal map, so make sure tangent is turned on. You can leave the adaptive. You can use that though, but it's kind of make your baking time much longer. So just leave the default like this. Smooth UV should also be on. That should be fine. Smooth UVs and smooth UVs and smooth normal should be fine. And I'm going to be exporting this out at the subdivision level, at subdivision level 2. So you want to make sure you're on the subdivision level that you want to kind of export out that you kind of exported out your base mesh. And you also want to bake your normal map and your displacement map also on that same subdivision level. So create normal map now. Should create a normal map for us. So it's in there now. Tangent should be turned on. Smooth UV should be turned on. Smooth normal should be turned on also. So now I'm going to clone this normal map. Clone NM. So that has been cloned now to the texture menu. So you go up to the texture menu up here. That's the map. This is the map down here. So now you need to flip UV on this because Maya looks at things upside down. So click on flip vertically. So once you do that now, you can freely and safely export this model out. So you export this texture out. So I'm going to create a new folder and then name this Z maps. So all my Z maps exported out from ZBrush should be in this folder. So I'm going to export that PNG. The map is actually fine at PNG. So I'll export as PNG. So now that I've exported that out now, so I'm going to show you guys let me go to the folder and then show you guys. So this is here. It's actually at 2K resolution. I'm supposed to export this out at 4K resolution. Those 2K is still fine though, but let me export at 4K resolution. To do that, you have to go to UV map. Then all you have to do is kind of select 4000 pixels for this. Or you can still drag it out all the way to 8K if you want to. Just leave the rest at default. Default is fine. So I'm going to just leave this at default also. So let me just click on, let me just see, if you go all the way, 8K is the like the highest for this, but 4K is actually fine though. 4K is actually fine. So back to normal map. Let me turn this off. So I'll click texture off. I'm going to bake this again. So leave everything at default, and I'll just click on create normal map. So I've created the map now. So we'll have to kind of clone the map again back to the texture menu. So I'll click on clone the map. I'll go to the texture. So it's already selected by default. Then you would also have to flip the axis. So you're going to use flip V, flip vertically. So now then I'm going to export this out to the same folder. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we have safely exported that out now. So if I kind of double click and then we'll kind of cross check this to be sure if everything's working correctly. Let me just double click this and then view this here. This is it here. So let's kind of view our map. So if you remember in Maya, the UVs were at the left hand side. So let me just zoom in here. You can see all the holes we created now. You can see all the holes we created. Let me just zoom in better. You can see the wood textured normal in there. So this is exactly what we need, which is fine. This will work just fine for what we need it for. Okay. Yeah, everything came out correctly. That's fine. There are no issues here. Okay, so let's break our displacement map. So to break our displacement map, we have to turn on smooth UV. The rest should be at default. By default, it kind of bakes out the maps in 16 bits, which is fine by default. Then we have to click flip V also. So that's going to flip this also in the texture menu. So we have to flip that in the texture menu. Then instead of creating displacement map, we'll just click create and export map instead. So if I click on that to bring us in here, so now it's exporting out a 16 bits TIFF file, which is exactly what we need. You do not want to export this out with 8 bits channel. That will not be cool because that will give you a lower resolution to work with. 16 bit or 32 bits is actually fine. Even 16 bit for the most part is actually fine. So let me just rename this and then put the displacement in there. I'll save that. Then to bring out this menu for you to export out the object, click no. You don't want to export the object out also, so no. So that should do its thing. So let's go and check that map now. So I'm going to be checking this map with the paint option, with the paint tool, because I can't view this with the normal regular picture viewer. Let me just use the paint to view this. Okay, so this is our displacement map now. This is completely fine. You can actually work with this. This is good enough to work with, and so far there are no issues on this. There are no issues in here, which is fine because the maps are not being baked outside where the UVs are actually laid out. So this is fine. Can actually we just leave this as it is. Okay. All right. So it's basically the same process now we're going to be using to kind of bake out other maps for our model, other maps for the other asset also. It's like basically the same process. So let me just click on the nails. Now for this nail we didn't do too much. We didn't actually do any sculpted details on it. But just to be on the safe side, I'm going to kind of add like 2 more subdivision levels to this, probably 1 more. Then I'm going to bake this at the lowest subdivision level. So this is actually fine though. This is actually fine. This is actually fine. So let me just drag this to the lowest subdivision level and just bake this out. So it kind of bake out that smoothed higher subdivision level for us, which is actually fine if you want to. Which is actually fine. So it should be on 4K UV map. Make sure it's on 4K. Then we're only going to be baking normal map for this because we don't actually need displacement map for this since we don't have any interesting details on here. So the normal map should work just fine. So I created that now. So I'm going to clone this. Go to the texture menu. So it's selected by default. Selected by default. So now I'm going to flip vertically. Then export this out. Then I'm using PNG for this. You can either use TIFF, PSD, or PNG. Those are fine. For JPEG, I'm not so sure. I prefer to keep to save this as PNG because that will kind of hold the details even more. Okay, so let's see displacement map. Not really. We don't really need displacement map for this. So these are fine the way they are. We're going to be doing the detailing in substance painter instead. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, let's kind of see the map that I baked out for us. So let's kind of visualize this. So if I should zoom in here, let me just zoom back out. Okay, so you can see the maps baked out for us, which is fine. It is fine, nothing too fancy. You can actually work with this. And you can also manipulate this also if you want to instead of Photoshop and then look for other normal map, external normal map and kind of paint that on top of this. That would also work too. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, yes. So now let's kind of put this on 4K also. Let's bake these pokers and rings. So let's start with the normal map. This is already on 4K. So the default setting is fine. Tangents, smooth UV, smooth normal, that's fine. Then we can create normal for this. Just give this a moment. It shouldn't take too long though. Okay. Alright. So now we can just the same process though. Flip vertically. Flip vertically. Then we can export this out. Okay. So I'm just naming this properly so I can keep track of things. I think here, let's kind of check that file now. Let's kind of check the normal map just to be sure if everything's working out correctly. It's always good practice to kind of check the normal map to see if it's working correctly. So let me just double tap on this. Okay. So this actually came out quite nicely. Came out the exact way we want it to, which is fine. Yeah, everything is working correctly. I can't really see any issue here. That's fine. Okay. So now we can actually bake displacement map for this also. Basically the same process. Turn on smooth UVs, turn on flip V, then we click on create and export map. We just name this. It's already on TIFF 16 bits, which is perfect for this. Okay. Yeah, I'll just click no on this. Alright, so that's fine. So let me kind of check this out and let's see how that came out. This displacement map is what we're going to be using inside of Arnold to kind of render this also. How far now?